Right, Sam. So a little bit of a background on what we wanted to do was obviously provide you guys with a little bit of education around coaching the general population, but coaching people who are going to get injured. The chances are people are going to get injured, but what does that mean to you as an online coach, to a PT, to whatever capacity you're in? First of all, for those who don't know me, I'm Gaz. I'm one of the founders of Plugin Rehab. I'm an active researcher at master's level at the moment. I'm an exercise rehabilitation instructor, did 15 years in the military. My last 6 years were at Headley Court Military Hospital. So there's not many injuries that I haven't dealt with in regards to like complex trauma, spines, lower limbs, all that kind of stuff. Ash, do you want to kind of give your background as well on what you're currently up to?
Yeah, I'll make it as snappy as possible. Similar to Gaz, come from a military background, transitions into being an exercise rehabilitation instructor. And as Gaz mentions there, it's not just, although we're both doing research, we have a mass amount of hands-on experience, arguably more than most kind of civvy street physios and therapists and sports rehabilitators. And that was just by virtue of seeing everything from missing legs through to chronic regional pain syndrome and everything else in between. So if if we haven't seen it, it's probably quite rare. My background now, so I left the military to pursue a career in academia. My time's split between academia because I have to keep my toe in, otherwise it's not worth becoming a doctor. And then the rest of my time was dedicated to Red On. I do have active leadership roles, so I'm the chair for the British Association of Sports and Exercise Sciences Paediatric Exercise Science Group. So that's everything from a baby right the way through to the age of 24. Okay, so anyone who's working with athletes, that covers a lot of athletic populations. I'm also part of the Leadership Council for the International Society of Behaviour, Nutrition and Physical Activity. And more recently, I've been appointed one of the task force members for developing the updated physical activity guidelines for musculoskeletal and rheumatic conditions. A lot of my research is done at the University of Manchester, and there's plenty more strings to my bow. But like I said, it's typical doctor stuff. I'm spinning multiple plates, but there is good reason for that, and it's to keep you guys as informed as possible because I'm just a normal lad, really. I'm not a full-on gimp.
Well, speak for yourself, mate. Right, so we'll get into this, we'll get stuck in. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background. So Plugin Rehab, what we do is I work with a number of the coaches that are on the call now. So we essentially work with our coaches to help them retain their athletes. And what I want to try to do is impart a little bit of that knowledge onto you guys as teams. So the reason why we work with our coaches is to make sure that no matter what's happening at the back end, so whether someone's getting injured or someone's broke a leg, whatever it may be, we can keep them on their programs because, ultimately a retained athlete is going to be a healthier athlete down the line. And the big part that we do and what we want to do tonight for everyone is we educate our coaches as much as we educate our athletes. Whenever we're doing these presentations to their athletes, a lot of our coaches sit back and go, I didn't realize that. And this is, it's all new to me. So what we want to try to do tonight is give you a little bit of the education so actually you can go in and impart this on your athletes as well. So why is it so important to understand a little bit around injuries, the current population and what's going on and how that looks? Well, the current stats at the moment is 33% of the current population suffer with a musculoskeletal condition. Now, if you're coaching someone, that figure probably still rings true. It doesn't matter if you're coaching 10 people or 200 people. Chances are around about 33% of your population are going to be suffering with some form of musculoskeletal injury. For the population that you normally coach as a coach or a PT, that condition and that percentage increases when people are overweight, first and foremost. And then when they go into the obesity kind of world, it increases again. Now, if you think about what a normal PT, normal coach's clientele looks like, it's normally people who want to lose, 10, 15 kilograms, whatever it may be, dads that have kind of lost the way, mums that have lost the way. We're really looking at a bit of a pandemic almost. I hate that word, but a bit of a pandemic almost in the sense of musculoskeletal conditions, particularly when it comes to people being overweight or obese. Now, 68% of fitness goals are not achieved due to people reporting injuries. So when it looks at a snapshot of the UK and I looked at the UK Gov website, they've got tons of these stats and they're really easy to pull out. I always lean on Ash for this kind of stuff coming out of universities and current research. But 68% of fitness goals are not achieved due to people reporting injuries. For a coach or a PT, that's your revenue stream right there. If people are pulling off, then there's a massive issue there. So we need to make sure that you can retain them athletes. And then as a coach, it doesn't matter whether you've gone away and done a level 2 coaching qualification on Groupon or whether you're a PhD researcher. No matter who you speak to as part of your community, you're going to be seen as the expert in that. So when they come to you and go, I've rolled my ankle, what do I need to do? You are seen as the expert. So we have to be on hand to give them a little bit of advice so that they can go away and implement X, Y, and Z to make sure that they can keep pushing forward as well. So I hammer this to all of our coaches. The principles of injury prevention, there's only 4 of them. Really, really simple. Strength, flexibility, balance, and endurance. Now, if I break it down really quickly, strength, obviously we all apply the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. As a coach, that is how we should program and how we make sure that we've got the correct strength training balance in there, yeah? Now, by making sure that we manipulate that and we put the correct weights, reps, sets, tempos, all that kind of stuff into a person's program, we're going to reduce the risk of injury anyway. That's absolutely fine. The strength aspect from a coaching point of view, I'm probably not too worried about. This is your bread and butter. One thing from a strength point of view, though, is this is the bedrock for anything. I put a post up yesterday about if you want to stay injury-free, get stronger. That's the bottom line. Strength is a foundation for every movement we do and for every event we do as well. Now, balance. If we've and it's easier said than done, isn't it? You need to start programming balance in your training and all this kind of stuff. No one's going to do that because, first of all your athletes are going to go, why am I standing on one leg on a balance cushion? Or why am I doing X, Y, and Z? It's a difficult one to get people to buy into. However, it's a case of like, you either use it or you lose it with balance and proprioception. So we have to make sure that we're training them as such. It's the one thing that kind of gets thrown away. I suppose if anyone's got kids and you ask them to stand on one leg, they could probably stand on one leg for the most part of the day because they train it every single day in the school playground. Now, if you asked any of your athletes to stand on one leg and close their eyes, and I know my coaches do ask them to do that now, they all fall over. 5-10 seconds, they haven't got the balance, they haven't got the proprioception. Now, when we're looking at big injuries like knee pain, shin splints, these kind of ones that keep cropping up for a coach or a PT, the first thing that I go back to, the first thing that Ash goes back to is what is your balance like? It's a test that we used to do at Headley Court, 30 second single leg balance assessment. Right. Can you stand on a leg for single leg for 30 seconds? No. We need to train that to make sure that your proprioceptors are all taking the correct amount of strain as well. Flexibility is obviously something that we probably try and harp on a little bit about. It's something that as a coach, I mean, I was a PTI in the army, so I used to tell people to go stretch off in the shower. That was the standard thing to do, right? And I know that there's probably a lot of coaches out there that go, I don't really want to be programming flexibility. Now, if we want to reduce the injuries, we have to make sure that the muscles and joints have the correct range of motion to put them through that. So we don't just want to be asking someone to back squat because we've seen it on Instagram that that's the way to do it. We have to make sure that, first of all, they're mobile enough, they're flexible enough to get into that position comfortably and can move the way that we're asking them to. And also make sure that actually we're trying to tie in a little bit of flexibility work, whether that is saying, team, go and follow this yoga page and try to do a yoga session 3 times a week, whatever it may be. I'm not telling you to start factoring it into every single session, but in an ideal scenario, if we're trying to reduce the risk of injury, we need to be adding some form of flexibility into our programming as well. And then the endurance piece, it's not as simple as it sounds in the sense of like, oh, just need them to go for a run. Endurance is your body and your muscles' capabilities to take repeated strains through that muscle, right? So if I'm asking you to do 1,000 bicep curls, at some point your body's going to break down. Now, if we have the muscular endurance to cope with 1,000 bicep curls, then that's probably absolutely fine. For the vast majority of people you're going to be coaching, unless you're coming from a performance-based aspect where people are, flying along and doing Ironmans or whatever they're doing, then we need to make sure that we're training muscular endurance as well in the gym. So again, properly periodized training is going to help with this. If we hit all 4 of these, strength, flexibility, balance, and endurance, we're in a really good, strong position to make sure that our troops and our athletes do not get injured, all right? So how do we reduce the injuries for kind of the general population? I've tried to pin this to the general population. Ultimately, focus on key areas of the body. So if we're looking at, shoulders, backs, hips, knee, and ankle as the key areas where what I see on a daily basis of injuries, they're the big players in it. Probably even if we're going to pin it down even further, back and knee. If we can focus in and around them areas, which 90% of the muscles are the same thing, nice, strong, stable trunk, glutes need to be working, hamstrings need to be working, and your soleus muscle needs to be working. If you nail them 4 kind of muscle groups, you're going to be in a really strong position to keep them pushing as well. Obviously, at Red On, myself and Ash running the testing centre, this is a massive one for us. Test, don't guess. Now, I'm not saying you need to come in and test all your athletes at the Red On Performance Centre. What I'm saying is, at the start of your programming, you should be testing your athletes to see what level they're at. We shouldn't just be going, right, okay, you come to us and you want to lose 15 kilograms. Here's a program and here's how we do it. We have to test to get a baseline metric to then program from. If we're not doing that, I would urge everyone to start putting a test week at the start of their programming and then coming back to it. If nothing else, it's going to give you some nice health markers to go back to someone when they go, thanks very much, I've done 4 months, I'm dropping off. And you can say, well, actually, your heart rate's dropped, your 6-minute walk assessment's dropped, and your single leg press has gone up. It's giving you some hard metrics there to go, you are improving your health markers, you are going to live longer. There is countless studies out there that you can tie into, better health, lower heart rate, all this kind of stuff that you can feed back to your athletes to make sure that they understand that actually they're in the right place for this as well. We need to follow the principles of injury prevention. Obviously, I've mentioned that before. And then we need to properly periodize training. One thing I will say, and the reason why I tried to put this on, is get educated. We never know everything. I see Ash on a daily basis sitting in on lectures and all this kind of stuff. And if Ash is doing that at the top level with a PhD and looking to be a professor, we should all be doing that as well. So we need to make sure that we're educating ourselves so we understand about properly periodizing that training as well. My final slide, Ashton, I'll put it on to you. But how do we test our athletes? So really simple one for the general population that I would use. 5-stage approach. Obviously, we can do things like a 6-minute walk assessment is really simple. If you go on the NHS website, it's literally got a protocol for you. If you are working with the general population who are possibly obese or overweight people, 6-minute walk assessment is really, really good for you. All you need is 20 meters and you're going to walk up and down for 6 minutes. You're going to take someone's heart rate and RPE. It literally breaks it down for you. It's a really simple one for you to feed health markers back to them. Other than that, these are the ones that I would use as a baseline to check if people are at risk of injury and to make sure we can work on them. I said before, single leg balance assessment. Can they do this with their eyes closed? Ideal scenario, I would bring my knee up in line with my hip. To make it a little bit more safe, so to speak, bring the knee down. We need their eyes closed and we don't want them wobbling about. Can they hold that for 30 seconds? Baseline assessment. Single leg glute bridge. Get them to film this. If you want them to do that in a gym and you're online coaching, get them to film it from the front and from the side. Can they hold this for 30 seconds without that pelvic shift? If they're dropping off and all that kind of stuff, we need to work on our glutes and we need to make sure that our pelvis is nice and stable, whether that is looking at trunk stability and that kind of stuff too. Single leg press, 1.5 times our body weight for a single leg press. Now, if you can't do that, you're at risk, again, shin splints, knee pain, hip pain. This is a really simple one. It's one that you can use every day. So if someone's come to you and they're not particularly happy about back squatting, front squatting, doing Olympic lifting, all that kind of stuff, a single leg press is going to be your greatest tool. Get them on that single leg press 3 times a week and build that single leg strength. It's going to really help them. Single leg soleus raise. If you've watched mine and Ash's video, you'll know how crucial this one is. Essentially, your soleus takes about 6 to 8 times your body weight every time you run going through it. So it's the small calf muscle that hides behind the gastrocnemius. Essentially, we need to keep our knee bent to make sure that we carry it out through this movement. So 30 reps each side is a baseline rehab marker. It's quite difficult. Try it tonight, bent knee. I normally aim for around about 20. If you can do 20, you're in a good position. 30 is quite a lot. Obviously, when I was at Headley Court, I used to make people do 30 because I used to like to see people be in a little bit of pain with it because that's nice. But 20 is probably enough for the general population, all right? And then the final one that I do is just a little simple, like functional one. And it is just, can they undo a bra? Is it symmetrical as they go through that movement? Really simple. Can they put the hand in the same position and undo a metaphorical bra? I don't actually ask them to undo a bra. No one needs that on their conscience. But there we go. They're the 5 that I would go for. Ash, we're going to go through a little bit of decision points for a coach and where to stop and what that would look like. Are you happy to crack on from there, mate?
Yes, mate. Yeah. So, right, guys, girls, strap yourselves in. What I'm going to cover here might look quite deep, but actually it's fairly simple. Okay. So, a lot of the principles that Gaz has spoken about here, they all work on a continuum. Okay. So, as a coach, you're never going to be in the position whereby you're seeing someone through from point of injury right the way through to becoming an athlete or going to their marathon, 10K, 5K, or just even enrolled on a path run. Okay, you can pick them up at any point. Okay, and one of the hardest things we have as coaches is trying to understand what we do at each stage. Okay, and what each stage looks like. So obviously, it's critical for the individual to stop themselves from having a psychological wobble or even having a negative impact on their physical health to get back to training as soon as possible. Unfortunately for you guys and girls, there is no gold standard of sport testing when it comes to progression or training regimes. Okay, there's a whole host of models out there, but there is no gold standard. Okay, there is something called the RTS, so the Return to Sport Continuum, which is what we're going to base our work around here. Okay, so you'll see down at the bottom here, okay, and this should give you a little bit of a guide now on where you go in terms of training. So you've got down here at stage 1 repair. Now, this is where we see coaches kind of lose most of their clientele. All right, so little Jimmy goes out for his 2-mile run, right, rolls his ankle, and straight away goes to A&E. A&E says, rest up 6 weeks, job done, okay? You've lost that client for 6 weeks, potentially lost them forever, okay, if they don't come back to you. He's only rolled his ankle, all right? We've had people who have lost a leg who is back in training, okay? It doesn't matter. You just need to be managed different, okay? So you do need to ensure that you're facilitating the healing process in that early stage. You want to kind of minimize swelling after kind of 48 to 72 hours because swelling initially is good. Okay, so we don't want to just smash an ice back onto everything straight away. We then want to work on getting like pain-free range of movement and then ensure that we're still activating the muscles. Now, there's different ways to do that. If you're feeling a little bit fancy, you can go and get an e-stim machine and you can hook them up and you can have the muscles contracting involuntary. Okay. But it could also be as simple as using the left leg whilst the right leg is immobilized. So if it is something as serious as a femur fracture, all right, so the bone in the thigh, and they're in traction and they really can't do anything, obviously that needs rest, okay? But resting that injury, all right? So they can get in the gym the following week and it's not a problem getting them on a leg press, getting them on a knee extension for the opposite leg. Is that a question or is that someone just unmuted themselves? There we go. So yeah, so we can get them in the gym. It's not a problem. We can train opposite leg. So at the bottom of the spine as the nares exit, there's something called the cauda equina. I feel like a broken record saying this to people because I have to say it all the time. You can still train. Where the cauda equina comes out, which is Latin for horse's tail, that's where all the nerves go off and do their little individual jobs, okay? So what happens is there's a crossover of signaling. So if you're training the left leg, for example, and the right leg's immobilized, even though you're training the left leg, the right leg will still get some of that signaling, okay? What that can lead to maintaining muscle mass or certainly reducing the amount of muscle wastage or atrophy. And it can also maintain that fundamental movement patterning acquired through motor skill and motor competency that you may lose. Okay, so repair is not a problem. We need to do everything within reason. You don't want to smash him, obviously. And there's nutritional sides which they're beyond the scope of today. Otherwise, I would have you here for hours. But there's also nutritional considerations that you need to throw in. But just because they're in the repair phase doesn't mean that you have to let them go. Okay. In fact, you should be doing the opposite. We then move into rehab and recovery. Go back a slide, Gaz.
Right.
Yeah, we then move into rehab and recovery, which is stage 2. Now, most people are familiar with this. Again, this is where still coaches lose clientele, and they will quite often put them off to someone who is a quote unquote expert. Okay. Now that's all well and good, and you should be working with an expert, not instead of. Okay, and that's exactly what Plug in Rehab do. We step in as the rehab and recovery specialists. We keep the clients or the athletes still ticking over and training with their like mother coach, if you like. But we do the rehab and recovery bit in the background. And that's all for us, kind of, we're getting them back to normal anthrokinematics, and that's moving properly, movement patterning, and getting over their injury, getting some muscle back if they've lost some, okay, and getting those motor patterns back on cue. All right. We then move into the reconditioning. That's where you may step in a little bit more, and then into performance, and then hopefully back into like pre-season training camps, or certainly looking towards the goal that they got focused. You'll find, that a lot of this information and kind of content is athlete focused, because that's where a lot of the research sits. But the same rules apply for little old Norris, who's going on his first half marathon. They can still, it's still a pre-season or training camp for them. Okay, so you've just got to shift your focus and your thoughts a little bit when it comes to using the return to sports clearance continuum. Okay, remember, anyone can come at any time. You just need to look after them. There's no need to lose them. Next slide, guys. So what does that look like then? Looks like a fairly complex overview, but it's not. Okay, essentially, Gaz said at the beginning, test, don't guess. If you're not testing, we can't improve. When someone is injured, we want to move away from like 8 weekly, even 12 weekly testing protocols. And we want to start kind of testing individuals almost on a daily basis, weekly as a minimum, all right, for that rehab process. It doesn't have to be anything bonkers and fancy, okay? It can be a psychometric test, okay? So we can use tests to look at their readiness, their psychological readiness to return to training. Again, whilst they are kind of contextualized more towards an athletic or a sporting situation, you can still lift those surveys and questionnaires and apply them and use them with your clients. There's nothing wrong with that, all right, at all. If you're unsure of what these questionnaires look like, there's a whole host of them. And if you are ever like struggling, give us a shout, and I'll just do a post on them on Instagram and I'll list them. Right, there's loads of them, there's an abundance of them. Movement stuff, so there's loads of like FMS type stuff. There's fancy little apps now that you can use. So there's one called MyJump. MyJump is, it might be called Jump Lab now actually, but essentially what that does is it's a camera. It will allow you to do counter movement jump screening, okay, and get an assessment of their power. It'll allow you to look at movement screening. So it'll put 2 little dots on their hips, for example, and they'll do a squat and you'll be able to see if they're offloading. It's a validated tool. So although you might look, or not look, although you feel a little bit chip shop sometimes. So we work with coaches all the time and trying to develop them, certainly from a plug-in side. And sometimes people go, oh, I don't want to have the phone out. If you just set it up in a professional manner, you can use this software. So this is that MyJump Lab stuff, which is a validated software. So the paper was published in the Journal of Sports Sciences. I was one of the reviewers a few years back. It's validated against some pretty expensive Gucci kit, and it does the job. So as a coach, straight away, you've got that tick in the box. It does Nordic hamstring curl testing, like I said, a whole host of jump testing, and some movement pattern and stuff as well. It even has the addition of a postural sway analysis. So like Gaz alluded to earlier with the balance and proprioception work, they'll hold this phone, okay, or you get one of those running vests and they put it in the little pouch at the front, and they will go onto one leg, they'll balance, and as they're moving, it will tell you how much sway is involved as well. All right, so straight away, there's a tool there that's not going to cost you thousands of pounds. Like if you come up to our testing centre, we've got a whole host of kits and it costs tens of thousands of pounds. You don't need that, okay? This app will do it for you, okay? Reason mentioning all this is you need to be able to test, all right? You need to be able to know when to progress someone on. The worst thing you can do is go 1 step forward and 2 steps back, all right? That is, you're just sliding down a greasy pole, all right? Rehab, reconditioning, return to sport, it's expected that we will go 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but we don't want the opposite to what I've just said, okay? So that's 1 step forward, 2 steps back is no, 2 steps forward, 1 step back is fine and normal for rehab, all right? Lots of steps involved, it's like doing a tango. When you're looking at testing progression, you've almost got these 6 key indicators. So you've got movement and core, you've got your strength and endurance, your power, general sport conditioning, okay, or something specific for that individual. It may be something as simple as a yo-yo test, a white balance test. It may be a VO2 max test. It might be a 6-minute walk test, okay? Just because it says sport conditioning, don't forget about the general bit, all right? So people often go, oh, they're actually showing us this, and they're not athletes. I'm like, yeah, no, they're not athletes, but they've still got a goal, okay? They remember, you're working with them. They're not just a piece of kit, all right? You need to work with them, align yourself to their goals, and bring them through from injury back to where they want to be, okay? Then you need to look at kind of load performance, so return to the actual specificity of what they intend to do, so whether that's running. So again, Gaz and I, we've shared validated evidence-based return to running protocols, okay, that start off at like 10 seconds on, 5 seconds off, and all this type of stuff in terms of run walk. They're all validated. They're there for you. You just need to ask. Just reach out to us. You will have to give me a few nudges, to be fair. I'm not going to lie, but if you reach out to Gaz, certainly through Plugin and through those channels, they'll be a little bit quicker coming back to you. And I'm obviously there behind the scenes anyway, helping. Okay, so if ever you're unsure which direction to go, then please let me know. And then perhaps one of the most powerful is self-reported outcome scores. So what you'll find with athletes and clients, and certainly if they've never broken anything before, is they will break a femur, they will roll an ankle, they will break an arm, dislocate a shoulder. They'll come back and they will naturally try to guard that injury. They won't want to get as involved. They might cancel their 10K that they have booked, and they'll back off a little bit, okay? But there's a whole plethora of self-reported outcome scores that, despite what you see, so even if all their physical metrics have gone up, psychologically they're not ready yet, all right? And that's up to you to identify that. And if you don't know how to identify it, please do reach out. I can't stress this enough. The data's there, the information's there. This is the process that we've laid out in front of you. It's not rocket science, okay? It is science, obviously. It doesn't need someone with the title doctor to test people at all, okay? You can do this in your gym, and it will massively enhance your credibility and the value that you offer to these people, okay? Irrespective of level, they all need a little bit of a hug and be told it's all right, all right? Get consent before you hug them, all right? Where's the blame and all that type of stuff. Anyway, Gaz, before I digress and dig a hole, next slide, mate. So going to the more kind of nice approach, looking at the psychosocial approach, this scheme that you see here is about empowering your clients and your athletes, okay? So there's 4 levels to this. So there's empower, engage, feedback, and then transparency. What we don't want to do with athletes and clients is make this difficult, okay? Putting too many words that they don't understand. They're probably already looking at an MRI or an X-ray that they haven't got a clue about. You want to educate them, but within reason, okay? Give as much or as little as they're happy to take, all right? You want to consult them on their injury, irrespective of what knowledge you have. So I can sit there sometimes as a doctor in a clinic. So I will spend a couple of days a month in clinic with musculoskeletal issues. I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to tell them what to do and have them just listen to me. I want them to tell me, all right, so what's the problem? What are you experiencing? The subjective element, which is what we call it, like if we're going to put a label to it, is sometimes more powerful than physical metrics, okay? You want to develop a return to performance contract. So what does that look like then? That's you agreeing the terms with them and the stages and steps that you need to take to get to there. All right. So this is all about empowering those individuals. You've given them some control. For those of you who have any kind of underground one kind of understanding of psychology, you might start to recognize this as self-determination theory. Okay. So looking at kind of giving them the empowerment aspect. Okay. You want to engage with them. Like I said, testing daily if possible. These psychometric scores can be done certainly daily, just simple balancing, how are you getting on today? Text me across, let me know how you're getting on. The plug-in rehab tool that we use for the more serious clients that has a daily check-in, so we can see their overall well-being and we can see their pain scores as they go through, okay? That obviously all goes with this management plan and agreeing these kind of terms with them as they move forward. Again, continuing that education, engaging with them, little things like putting these types of webinars on. And if you are a client or plugin, we do this for you. Okay, we engage with your athletes and your clients, and we provide the education. All right, so we do that for you, but there's nothing stopping you going out there and doing it. And again, if ever you're unsure, just come in, open up to us and let us know what you're unsure about. There should be no egos in this industry. It's the worst thing. All right, we want to encourage rehab holidays. Okay, so the rehab process can be quite lengthy, depending on what the individual has done. So if they've lost a limb, you definitely want to have some rehab holidays. Now, the example it gives on here is about kind of giving them a holiday, or letting them have a weekend off and spending some time with the family. Also think about how that looks in training. So I've spoken about it before. A rehab holiday in training, you may just go, yeah, there's loads of focus on rehabilitating this ankle or whatever it is. But today, mate, just go off and just 1 RM your bench. Like, let's just get back. Let's do some chest Tuesdays or whatever and just get amongst it. All right. You'll get the buy-in from them. All right. You're engaging with them and you're giving them a little bit of what they want. And there's no reason why you can't do that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Okay. Feedback's huge. All right. Video feedback, get agreed action points. Use, like the app, like that My Jump Lab, and I'll check that in a minute when we go to questions to make sure I'm giving you the right name. But use apps like that. Use the psychological readiness questionnaires or the return to play questionnaires. Use just, most of us are wearing wearables and trackers. How many steps did you get in today? What have you done? How was your sleep last night? What's your resting heart rate? All of this are metrics that you can collect. All right. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to act on them all. Okay, but they're metrics that you can collect. And then transparency. When I say transparent here now, it goes back to the ego, and I'd say the transparency. And we're all guilty of it. Sometimes I'll go, oh, that's bollocks, I'm not listening to that. But actually, there's a problem there, okay? Because they're trying to express something that perhaps they don't know what to fully express and how to do it. You need to be fully transparent up front and say, you know what, I don't know everything. You tell me what you think is going on, all right? And then you can go away and you can look into it. And if you don't know something, please don't try and blag it. And you'll be surprised. And what I don't want you to think as well, that I'm talking down to anyone. I've seen this at the highest levels where people are like, yeah, in fact, today someone's texted me, a physio's told me my glutes are not working. I'm like, fucking, of course they're working. That's a stupid thing to say. But it's hard. So I can't say that to them. I just go, oh yeah, maybe we'll have a look. All right. So the transparency works both ways. Okay. We don't know everything. We'll never know everything. What you need to know is how to find out the correct and appropriate information. All right. So don't be watching Daniel Huberman or whatever his name is, Andrew Huberman. Go to really reliable sources who know what they're doing and go to the specialist in their areas. Okay. Good. Next slide, Gaz. Which I think that's me done. So it's on to Gaz. And I know just hit you hard of everything, and I'm happy to take questions as well.
Cheers, Ash. Yeah, I suppose just to finish it up, really, some non-negotiables that you can like implement as part of your athletes' training programs, things that, and I think myself and Ash, whenever we're educating our coaches, athletes, we try to do the kind of the minimum effective dose. So I never want to start saying to your athletes, oh, actually, I'd like you to get in the gym for an extra hour to do your rehab, blah, blah, blah. Like, if we can do things that are going to help them stay injury-free at home and all that kind of stuff, that's going to be much better. So a couple of the kind of non-negotiables to keep them injury-free, get them to warm up properly. I mean, for those who aren't military, the military started doing proper warm-ups, I think, anyway, or they did when I'd left. Dino nod or shake his head. But probably not still going on, but they should do. And they use something called the RAMP protocol. So a really, really simple way of getting your athletes to warm up. So raise the heart rate, activate the muscles that are going to be used in that session, mobilize the joints that are going to be used in that session, then potentiate, which is a throwaway word, essentially get specific with whatever you're going to do there. So a really simple way of doing it. So a 4-step kind of approach to a warm-up, really simple. If people warm up, they're going to be, firing for the session, less likely going to get injured. The muscles are ready to contract and do their job. And actually, we're going to make sure that they have that longevity in the session as well. Second one, and I think the biggest one, Ashley just mentioned it like massively, listen to your athletes. I do see a lot of coaches who kind of decide that they're going to program whatever they want to do because they're a Hyrox coach or whatever it may be, and they kind of go, well, I do Hyrox, so this is the way that I did it, and that's how I'm going to do it. I see it a lot on Instagram. Ultimately, coaches are there to listen to people. The main reason why people come to you to get fitter is because first of all, they've bought into you as a person. as a coach. So they're there for a reason. They want you to coach them. So now all you need to do is listen back to them. And I'm, you know, absolutely certain that if you just empathize with them, their situation, they'll go on to get fitter and stronger anyway, because they want to impress you as a person. And some little bits around that. So I always say to our coaches as well, some pain and discomfort is absolutely fine. Now, if we're training people to do a marathon, half marathon, Ironman, high rocks, whatever it may be, just get up off the couch and do a 5K. A little bit of pain and discomfort is absolutely fine. I think you need to like kind of level with your athletes that if you're walking out the door 7 or 8, 9, 10 out of 10 pain, that's not right. That's not right. If you're going out the door 2, 3 out of 10 pain and you've been asked to do a session, absolutely fine. I don't know many people over the age of 30 that are in 0 out of 10 pain. Like we've all got creaks and you know, stiff joints and your muscles hurt and all this kind of stuff. Understand it, empathize with them, and make sure that you give them the kind of the option to go, well, actually, if you're hurting, I'm going to send you on a run. Let's look at editing that. Can I get you on a bike? Can I get you on a rower? Can I get you on something non-impact? You know, listen to the athlete. They've come to you for a reason, and it's because you're an expert in your field, and they need you to be there for them. Clicks, creaks, random noises, they do happen. If they're not associated with pain and they're coming, and an athlete is coming to you and going, Coach, I've got, you know, a clicking knee whenever I'm squatting, or I'm creaking when I'm walking around the house, like, is there pain associated to that? If not, it's probably all right. It's probably all right. Obviously, I don't want you to kind of go, you're absolutely fine, go and max out your back squat. They should go in and have a look and have it checked out. But for the vast majority of people, we do click, we creak. If there's like popping and that kind of stuff, then we maybe need to have a look at it as well. Warn them off consulting Dr. Google. Like, it's the worst thing for an athlete. Getting someone who's come to us and gone, I get it all the time. Gaz, I search Google and I think I've got, you know, Achilles tendonitis. Right, okay. Have you got these symptoms? Bam, 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 that are, you know, typical with that kind of that injury. And they'll go, no, I haven't got any of them. I've just been on Google and that's what it says I've got. So try to steer them away from Dr. Google and the bad news kind of bearers as well. With their training, movement is normally medicine. And I put is normally. I always say movement is medicine, and it is medicine for the vast majority of people. We have to adapt their movement, like Ash said before. Like we've worked with, you know, complex trauma patients down at Headley Court who've got one arm and no legs and are missing another arm. Like, we can always make them move. Movement is normally medicine. So when it comes to like back injuries, knee injuries, as long as we adapt the movement, keep them moving, it normally helps increase like blood flow and helps that area kind of repair itself nice and quickly. So movement is normally medicine. We should never, ever stop training. And the reason why we work with the coaches we do and why we have the success we do with our coaches is because we will never, ever tell their athletes to stop training. There is always something that can be done. You know, I work with a lot of the coaches on the call here, and no matter the injury that comes through us, through our doors, we will always get them to do something. Now, whether that is going for a walk, whether that's sitting on a handbike, whatever it may be, we will always make someone move. The movement should never be stopped. And we need to, and I said it before in the first one, we need to prioritize strength. Now, what we'll see, and I don't know from a coach's point of view and what I see, particularly from a rehab kind of standpoint, is people will tend to go, I've got a 40-minute session to do. Ash has set me a strength session, but I'm just going to go for a jog. And that's like, that seems to be like a little bit of a mindset for the population at the moment. Is like, I've got 40 minutes to do something. What can I do? I don't really want to do the strength that Ash has set me. So I'm just going to go out for a little jog. That's something I enjoy to do. Now, we need to try to get them to focus and prioritize on strength. I put that post up the other day to say, if you want to stay injury-free long-term, get stronger. There's not a muscle in the body that increases the risk of injury when we get it stronger. Not one muscle. So if we can get stronger across all of them, we're in a really good position to stay injury-free, right? Think functional. Now, I know some of you will have people who are probably right on the side of being really, really obese. but we still need to think functional. The big functional movement patterns, how we move in everyday life, are going to get more bang for your buck when we're getting them moving and keeping them injury free as well. Single limb work is always going to be key with this. So getting them to move in a singular or unilateral manner is always going to help, mainly because first of all, it's going to highlight any imbalances. Second of all, we're going to be able to put less strain on, but get more bang for our buck out of it. And painful areas will start to come out. So what you'll notice if you get people to start training, you know, one arm shoulder press in a kneeling position or single leg press, that kind of stuff, they'll start to go, Ash, actually, my right knee hurts a little bit, but my left leg's fine. So we can then start to pinpoint, right, well, we need to put some strength into their right leg instead of their left leg and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, trust the process. You are the experts when it comes to that program design bit. Keep educating yourself. The reason why I put this session on tonight with Ash and myself is we should never stop that education. Education is a never-ending cycle. You can't complete it. So if you can dive on calls like this and make sure that you're getting as much as you can from it, go in, impart that onto your communities. You're going to be in a really good position, and we are making sure that they have everything and they have the tools to move forward too. And the final thing is ask questions. There's loads of cool people on Instagram doing lots and lots of really good stuff. You know, ask them the question, you know, reach out to people, make sure that we're getting all the right information as well. And then I'm going to stop recording, nail the basics, periodize the training properly, and then ask if you're unsure is kind of the takeaway points. If I stop the recording, what we'll do is we'll just open it up to questions for the next kind of 10 to 15 minutes.